Speaker, I rise to speak on the Road Transport Amendment Demerit Points Reduction Bill 2026. Despite advances in vehicle technology and enforcement, the reality is that road trauma in New South Wales is worsening. As we've heard, last year 355 people lost their lives on our roads, the highest toll in 8 years. Around 70% of those deaths occurred on regional roads, with speed and fatigue the leading cause. This bill is designed to make permanent a scheme that incentivises drivers that have lost demerit points by providing a bonus point for 12 months of driving without further losses. And I note the nuances and limitations on certain types of driver. It is a carrot to promote good driving. However, as acknowledged by others in this place, the government's own evaluation found that there was no detectable impact on driver behaviour or offence rates. And I quote the conclusion of the 2025 New South Wales Government report, which states, "The evaluation concludes that A, there was and is a social licence for the New South Wales Government to explore options for rewarding good driving with a penalty-based demerit scheme, B, that the trial concept does have a plausible mechanism of effect, but C, that as implemented there was no detectable effect on driver behaviours or offences that can be attributed to the trial." It is possible that a trial may have had some positive effect on driving and road safety cognitions, but any longer-term effects of the trial or having a demerit removed will need further investigation. Let us remember that in February 2024, the government abolished the highly popular Fair Go for Safe Drivers scheme. That scheme provided a 50% discount on licence renewals for drivers who maintained a good record for 5 continuous years. That scheme recognised the majority of drivers who consistently do the right thing. This one does not, but it does provide an incentive for drivers who have had an offence in order to regain points after losing demerit points but having good driving for 12 months. It applies only to drivers who have already committed an offence. It has been pointed out, and I mention him as maybe the most well-known advocate for road safety, my father-in-law, Jacqui Scruby, head of the Pedestrian Council of Australia. And he has gone on record opposing this and calling it a reward for bad driving. Rewarding bad drivers he described as a free point and insanity. Now, like most people, I don't agree with everything that my father-in-law says, and I don't always agree with my father-in-law, but I did want to make the note that as the head of the Pedestrian Council of Australia, he had described that we should be rewarding drivers who do good work rather than incentivising drivers who have lost points. That said, I don't necessarily agree with him. If we are to be clear about road safety, though, the principles should be clear, and that is strong deterrence for unsafe behaviour, meaningful rewards for genuinely safe drivers, and investment in infrastructure that reduces risk. Because ultimately, road safety is driven by behaviour and by the built environment, not by administrative adjustments or demerit records. Those mechanisms do not reduce fines and don't provide targeted support, and often don't distinguish between genuinely safe drivers and repeat offenders. However, I have to admit, when I first considered this scheme and the bill which makes it permanent, my mind immediately did go to a local example, and that is Newport Hill and the recent speed limit changes which have occurred in my electorate. Now, there have been a number of speed limit changes, and many of them align very clearly with the new road standards and the technical directions. But there was one small section of road which sparked community outrage in particular, and that was Newport Hill. When thinking of this scheme in regards to Newport Hill, I did think to myself, well, this legislation is good for those times when people need the opportunity to regain a bonus point. It will help in those times to assist people claw back points that are lost unfairly due to inappropriate speed limit changes. And whilst this scheme will assist in those instances, it really isn't the answer to the example I've given. Because the answer is instead ensuring that the pendulum of speed limits doesn't swing so far that it loses public support and leads to people inadvertently and accidentally breaking the law. I'm still getting a vast number of representations from people in my community regarding Newport Hill, which is a 6-lane arterial road, a primary movement corridor for the Pittwater Peninsula. And under the New South Wales Technical Direction and Ausroads guidance, that type of road is typically set at 60 kilometres per hour. It has been reduced to 50 kilometres per hour, a speed which can only be achieved by pumping the brakes continually downhill and watching the speedometer. This is where the system in my area, and for this particular stretch of road only, has started to lose credibility and may lead to perverse outcomes. with good, law-abiding drivers accidentally losing demerit points. This is not a self-explaining road, and drivers do not intuitively perceive a wide, straight, 6-lane arterial road as a 50-kilometre zone. The design, geometry and environment all signal a higher speed. And when speed limits do not align with how a road is experienced, compliance does become, as I've mentioned previously, accidental rather than deliberate. People are not willfully speeding, but they are being caught out. And that creates frustration, confusion, and the real risk of losing demerit points unintentionally in an area which many people do have cars because it is a hard area to access, particularly around the backs of the electorate. I will just note quickly the technical case for retaining the 60-kilometre road. As I mentioned, it is a major arterial road with high movement function and low place function. It has low pedestrian activity and minimal roadside conflict. It has wide lanes, clear delineation and few access points, and crash rates on the data were borderline when compared with the technical guidelines. And I did do a significant amount of research into the technical directions and also the Australian road standards. I do want to mention, as I said, that in my community, we don't want compliance to drop because of these circumstances. And I also want to note that the implementation, and I know I'll just mention it quickly here, the implementation also eroded community confidence with inconsistent speed zone signs and a promise of, being awarded 4 weeks grace from the time the new speed limits were implemented. However, speed cameras were at the bottom. So all this added to a bit of a comedy of errors and caused people to not have confidence in not only the speed limit, but actually the system, which was concerning. They questioned the new road standards themselves, and this really undermines all the gains we've made in making those standards what they are, which do lead to safer roads, and I am fully supportive of. So we all agree there needs to be measures to address road safety that include both carrot and stick models, and of course implementing safer roads. When it comes to the carrot model, I will support this bill, and I do support this bill and this scheme, particularly thinking of those in my electorate who may be inadvertently caught on that Newport Hill. And my calls for Newport Hill do remain in order to stop good drivers accidentally breaking the speed limit on the road that is not a self-explaining road. I commend this bill to the House.